Okay, if you are in 7 Excel, we are working from the Advanced 2 textbook. If you are in Math 8, we are working from the Course 3 textbook. We are doing lesson 5.1 activity. Activity 1 and 2, and it can be found on page 202. Okay, we're still working on solving systems of equations by graphing, but sometimes it's not feasible to solve by graphing because your y-intercept is like 2,000 or your y-intercept is 350. Sometimes it's not feasible to solve by graphing because the graph would have to be so big, or your slopes are kind of wonky and it would be hard to figure it out. So sometimes it's not feasible to solve a system of equations by graphing. So we need to use a table. And that's what we're going to do today. Okay. So right here, our family starts a bed and breakfast. It spends $500 fixing up a bedroom to rent. The cost for food and utilities is $10 per night. Your family charges $60 per night to rent the bedroom. Okay, so let's start with our costs. Our costs. We spent $500 to set up the room. So this is a $500 initial cost. It's a one-time fee. This is a one-time cost. So a one-time cost because we had to fix up the room. Then it costs $10 per night for food and utilities. So $10 per night for food and utilities. Okay. So we need this, we need to turn this into an equation. Our costs are equal to a one-time cost of $500 to set up the room. And then this is a reoccurring cost. It's $10 per night. So we need to set this up as an equation. So my costs are equal to $10 per night plus the $500 initial fee, the initial cost. It's a one-time fee. So when we look at this, does this look like y equals mx plus b? It does. Okay, now we need to talk about our revenue. Our revenue. Our revenue is how much money we're bringing in, how much money we're making. And we charge $60 per night. So the amount of money we make is the revenue, and we make $60 per night. So we need to turn that into an equation. Revenue equals $60 per night. Does this look like y equals mx plus b if we add our invisible plus 0? It does. So here we have a system of equations, cost and revenue. So we have a system of equations. We have a system of equations. Cost equals 10n plus 500. Revenue equals $60 per night. And if we look at these, they do fit our slope-intercept form, a linear equation, y equals mx plus b. If that's a 0, and our n's are x's. Look at that. I'm not crossing them off, I'm turning them into the x's. So when I look at these equations, to solve this system of equations by graphing is going to be a nightmare because my y-intercept is 500, and then I'm going up 10 and over 1. And then here my y-intercept is 0, and I'm going up 60 and over 1. This is not a practical system of equations to solve by graphing because my y-intercepts are 0 and 500. That's such a huge gap. So what I can do, I can set up a table. We can set this up as a table. So we have the number of nights, which is my X. So we can rent it out for one night. Let's start with one night, and then we'll decide where to go from there. So we have the number of nights. Then we want to know when our cost is equal to our revenue. How many nights do we need to rent to do our B&B, to rent out that room so that our revenue is greater than our costs? How many nights? So I'm going to start with one night. So X is 1. So my cost is $10 times one night plus 500. And you can use a calculator for this. So my cost for one night is $510. Now let's take a look at our revenue. Our revenue for one night is $60 times one night. So our revenue is $60. So no, we have not made a profit yet. It cost us $510, but we've only made 60. So let's do, how much is it for 2 nights? So my cost for 2 nights is $10 times 2 nights plus 500. My cost is $520. My revenue for 2 nights is $60 times 2 nights. My revenue is $120. Okay. I'm looking, the gap is getting smaller, but it's moving painfully slow. So you know what? I'm going to, instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I'm going to jump to 5. Let's see where we're at for 5 nights. So there's a little bit of guess and check in this as well. I'm going to go to 5 nights. And then I can decide if I need more nights or fewer nights. But let's go to 5 nights. My cost is $10 times 5 nights plus 500. So my cost is $550. My revenue is $60 a night times 5 nights. My revenue is $300. Okay, the gap is getting smaller. 550 to 300. That gap is getting smaller. But I don't want to do 6, 7, 8, 9. Like, I don't want to do everyone. That's too much work. So I'm going to go to 10. And then I'll decide if I need to go fewer nights or more nights before I turn a profit. Depending, we want these guys to be as close to equal. Okay. So my cost is $10 for 10 nights plus 500. So my cost, 10 times 10 is $600. My revenue is $60 times 10 nights. My revenue is Oh, look at that. So on the 10th night, my cost is $600 and I have now made $600. So it takes me 10 nights to break even. Anything after 10 nights is profit. So let's take a look at what this is telling us. So on the 10th night, we break even. Our cost is equal to our revenue. So on the 10th night is when we break even. The amount of money we've made covers the cost of setting up the bed and breakfast. So on the 10th night, we break even. Our cost is equal to our revenue. We start making a profit on the 11th night. So that's what's going on. Okay, I want to set up one of your homework problems with you. I want to set up one of your homework problems with you. Okay? Okay, we are going to set up problem number 16, and it can be found on page 206. So let's take a look. The cost, C, in dollars for the care and maintenance of a horse and carriage is cost equals $15 times X, which is the number of rides, plus 2,000. Here they're telling us they charge $35 per ride. So we need to write an equation for the revenue R in terms of the number of rides and how many rides are needed to break even. So this to me looks like a system. So they're telling us the cost is equal to $15 per ride plus $2,000. This is the cost. Our revenue, that's how much money is coming in, is equal to $35 per ride. Now, when we look at these, do these look like linear equations? It does to me, especially if that's a plus 0. So to solve this system of equations by graphing is going to be a nightmare because our y-intercept here is 2,000 and our y-intercept here is 0. I do not want to create a graph with 2,000 tick marks. That's not very reasonable. So instead of solving this system of equations by a graph, I can set up a table. We can set up a table. So my X is rides. Rides is my X. And we want to know how many rides is it going to take before my cost is equal to my revenue, before I break even. So let's start with, when I look at this, you know what? I'm going to start with 10. I'm going to start with 10 rides. So now we're going to plug that 10 in. So the cost is equal to $15 times 10 rides plus 2,000. And you can use a calculator for this. My cost is equal to 2,150. Now let's take a look at the revenues. So my revenue is $35 times 10 rides. My revenue is $350. Okay, when I look at this, 2,150 to 350, that is a huge gap. I am not gonna go 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 rides, 15 rides, 16 rides, 17 rides, because this is a huge gap. So I'm gonna try, okay, let's try 50 rides. Let's try 50 rides. Where are we at for 50 rides? And then we'll decide if we need to do more rides or less rides. So the cost is equal to $15 times 50 rides plus the 2,000. My cost is equal to 2,750. My revenue for 50 rides is $35 times 50 rides. My revenue is 1,750. Okay, we're doing better. The gap is getting smaller. The gap is getting smaller. We're only $1,000 off now. So now I'm going to try 75 rides. So we'll take a look at what the gap is and decide, do we need to go higher or lower? So my cost is $15 times 75 rides plus the 2,000. My cost is 3,125, okay? Let's see how much revenue we bring in. $35 times 50 rides. So my revenue is 2,625. Okay, the gap is getting smaller. Now, from here, you're going to have to work it out. If I were you, I don't know, pick another number, pick like 85 or 90, and then decide, do you need to go up or down from there? And then at that point, look at what your gap is. Are you going to increase by 10? Or you increase by 5? You need to decide, okay? So we've worked it out for 10 rides, 50 rides, 75 rides, and we know we need more rides before we break even, before my cost equals my revenue. So I'm going to let you continue to work that one out on your own. So I don't think this is necessarily hard work. I think it's thinking work. It needs to make sense. So you might need to watch the video of the lesson a few times. You might need to pause it and rewind it. Watch it a few times for it to make sense.